Silly girl. That's what my lawyer said. After reading the papers my sister forged, I was halfway through my morning, coffee in London, when he told me the condo my grandmother left me was gone, sold, signed, stolen. My sister had turned my inheritance into her own, payday, and the proof was sitting right there in front of me. I didn't scream. I didn't even hang up. I just stared at the window, watching the rain slide down, like it already knew what I was about to do next. Because if my sister thought I'd stay quiet overseas, she had no idea what silence can do. I used to think distance protected me, from family drama, from their constant comparisons, from the quiet looks that said I'd never be enough. Living in London gave me space to breathe, to build something of my own. My sister, Molin, stayed behind in Florida, married, well, became the perfect daughter. Everyone bragged about at church. Mom adored her for it. And me, I was the dreamer who left. But there was one person who never made me feel small. Grandma Evelyn. She was sunlight in a world of cold approval. Every summer, NBR she'd brew lavender tea on her balcony, NDR tuned to overlooking Tampa Bay. The ceiling fan, NDR went hum. While she told me stories, NBR about how she learned to start over TBR after Grandpa died. Don't let life make you small, Lizzie, she'd whisper, NDR squeezing my hand. You're meant to take up space. That condo wasn't just PR property. It was her legacy, a place NBR soaked with her scent, her laughter, her NBR love. When she passed, she left me the indeed handwritten and signed with her NDR soft cursive. It was her way of saying, BUBR, I see you. Even if no one else does. After the funeral, Molin handled NDR to everything. The flowers, the paperwork, NDR and the estate meetings. She looked so and composed in her cream dress, greeting NDR and relatives like a hostess instead of a NDR grieving granddaughter. I thought she NDR was being responsible. Turns out she was NDR and rearranging more than roses. Mom used to be RDR sigh over the phone. You should be more EGR like your sister. She has her life near CDR together. I'd bite my tongue, sip my DBR teen coffee, and let the comments slide. IBR learned early that fighting for fairness NDR tent in our family was like yelling into a BDR tent her intent. So when my lawyer called, that morning when he said the condo had already been sold, I felt something inside me shift. The shock was cold, precise, almost surgical. For a moment, I imagined Molin signing the papers with that polished smile of hers, the one she wore when she wanted everyone to believe she knew best. I opened my laptop, scrolling through the photos on my phone, until I found one of Grandma and me on that same balcony. Her hand rested on mine. The sunlight caught the silver watch she always wore. My throat tightened. The condo was more than walls and keys. It was proof that someone once believed I was enough, and now my sister had turned it into cash. The drizzle outside grew heavier, tapping against the window like a warning. I closed my eyes and whispered, to no one, Grandma, I'm sorry. I should have protected what you gave me. Then my phone buzzed again. A new email from my lawyer. Subject line inconsistencies. Found. My heart stilled, because deep down I already knew who was behind them. Douglas's voice carried across the crackling line. Rachel, there's something off about these documents, he said. The notary stamps don't match, and the signature looks rehearsed. I pushed my chair back, staring at the screen in disbelief. Rehearsed? I asked, though I already knew the answer. He hesitated, then exhaled. Silly girl, he muttered, softly, not at me, but at whoever thought they could get away with this. Your sister must have forged it. Those 2 words, silly girl, cut deeper than he meant them to. They stuck in my head, repeating themselves until the meaning twisted. To him it was an observation. To me it was a challenge. My sister thought I was too naive, too distant, too trusting to notice. Maybe I had been, but not anymore. I minimized the call and opened my email. There it was, the scanned copy of Grandma's will that Douglas had sent months ago. The signature on the estate transfer looked similar but not identical. The loops were tighter, the pressure heavier. Mullen always pressed too hard when she wrote. She liked leaving marks. Outside, the rain hadn't stopped. Drops slid down, the window and crooked lines blurring. The city, I felt the same blur inside. Me, rage and disbelief folding into something sharper. Grandma had once said, if someone steals from you, they're not taking what's yours. They're revealing who they are. Now I finally saw who Mullen really was. Douglas cleared his throat on the line. Listen, Rachel, don't confront her yet. If she altered legal records, we'll need proof. I'll start pulling the property, logs and payment files. You just stay quiet for now, I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. Okay, I said, my voice flat, controlled. Just find out how deep it goes. After he hung up, silence filled the apartment, the kind that hums in your bones. I stared at my hands, trembling slightly over the keyboard. It wasn't just about the condo. It was about every dinner table, where Mullen had outshone me every eye roll when I mentioned art school. Every time Mom said, "You're too emotional." Maybe I was, but emotion was what made me human, and this time it was going to make me dangerous. I spent the next few NTR hours digging through old emails, NBR Grandma's letters, the digital scans, NDBR to even old photos of her handwriting. Every stroke, every loop became NBR to an evidence. When I compared them side by NBR's side, there it was the difference. Clear EDRTR as daylight. The forged signature looked NBR almost perfect. Almost NBR would destroy her. By midnight, I was NBR surrounded by papers and empty mugs. IPR sent Douglas the images and typed one TEDRCN final line. Before hitting send, she GRGR thought I wouldn't notice. She was NBR wrong. My phone buzzed almost NBR immediately. A notification from a TDRCN blocked number. A text. You've been NBR asking questions. I froze. The message NDR he had no name, no punctuation, just that NDR sent one sentence. My breath caught pulse NT-bari pounding. I typed back. Who is this? No reply. Just 3 dots appearing, NDR and then disappearing. The next morning my NDR phone rang again. The screen flashed a DDR10 name I hadn't seen in months. Mullen. For a DVR10. A full minute. I stared at her name, ENRTRTR10, glowing on my screen. Part of me wanted NTR10 to ignore it. The other part, curiosity, and DDR10 anger, maybe both made me swipe to NBR and dancer. Liz. Her voice burst through into BR10 and sugary and loud. You won't believe how NDR10 busy I've been. I finally sold Grandma's NDR10 to Condo. Closed the deal last week. My BR send fingers tightened around the phone. You and PTR sold it? Yep, she said proudly. Cash to DVR10, offer $320. The realtor said I handled it NDR10 like a pro. Anyway, I wanted to thank NDR10 you for not getting in the way. I know TDVR10 all that legal stuff overwhelms you. Martin didn't speak, not because I couldn't NBR10, but because if I did, my voice would NBR10 tremble from fury. And hey, she continued, cheerful as ever, I'm sending NBR you 10,000 next week. I figured you NBRN could use a little help with rent over NBRN there, 10,000 from my inheritance. Mullen, I said slowly. You do realize NBR10 that condo was mine. She laughed lightly and NBR10 like I'd made a joke. Oh, come on. Grandma wanted it for both of us. You're NDVR off in Europe living your art dream. I NDR handled everything for the family. For NBR to family. She said it like a badge of NBR. Honor. You forged her signature, I said DBR10 flatly. Her tone shifted sharper. TBR10 colder. Watch it, Liz. You don't know TBR10 what you're talking about. I took a slow breath. Actually, I do. Douglas found inconsistencies. Stamps that don't exist. Handwriting that doesn't match. Silence. Then a forced laugh. You're being dramatic again. Maybe that lawyer of yours wants more money. Don't embarrass yourself. She hung up before I could answer. For a few seconds I stood there staring at my reflection in the rain-streaked window. My heart wasn't racing. It was steady, terrifyingly steady. I replayed the call, pressed record, and saved the audio. Proof. Her arrogance had handed it to me. By the time I sent the file to Douglas, I was already writing another email. Proceed. Collect everything. When my mother called later that night, I almost didn't pick up. But guilt won. Sweetheart, she said warmly. I just spoke to Mullen. She told me she sold Grandma's place. Such a relief to have that handled. Handled? I repeated, my voice trembling. She's been working so hard, Mom went on. You should be proud of her. Proud? I swallowed the bitterness in my throat. Did she tell you who inherited it? A pause. She said Dior, and it was divided equally. I closed my Dior eyes. That's not true, Mom. Grandma left Dior and it to me. Oh, Rachel. She sighed. Tired already. Why start drama? Your Dior sister's done everything right. Please, Dior Jen, just let it go. The call ended before I could respond. For a long time I stood in Miardan and quiet, surrounded by the hum of Miardan at my fridge, and the low hiss of London and Dior and rain. They thought I was emotional, unstable, the silly girl who ran off in Dior chain chasing art instead of real life, but PPR and real life was about to find them. IMBR door opened a new folder on my computer and NBBR labeled it Truth. Inside I began NBR dropping files, recordings, letters, NDR comparisons. This time, I wasn't just keeping in NDR evidence. I was building a reckoning. Douglas called 3 days later. His tone NBR brisk, controlled the way it gets when NBBR something big is about to drop. Rachel, he said, we've filed the WR fraud report. The court issued a freeze NBR tent on the proceeds from the sale. Mullins NBR about to find out. I pressed the phone to NBR against my ear, my heart steady. Then I guess we wait, but we didn't wait long. By noon, my phone started buzzing NBR non-stop, one call after another. Mullen. I let them ring out, watching the NBR notifications pile up like proof of NBR guilt. 10 missed calls, then 15, then DDR 2020. Finally, I answered, What the hell at NBR did you do? She screamed, her voice sharp, NBR and panicked. I don't know, I said DBR evenly. Why don't you tell me? Dumb, Liz. The bank froze my WR account this morning. Do you have any idea what you've done? I didn't do WR anything, I replied. The truth did. There was a beat of silence, then a BBR and a bitter laugh. You've lost it. You think in BR you can ruin me. You're delusional. You delusional. Stole what Grandma left me, I said DBR coldly. You forged her name and BBR pocketed the money. Don't act surprised being TR when consequences show up. Her tone to BR cracked. Please, you were never NBR Saban responsible enough to manage that NBR scene property. I handled it for the family NDR Sant the way I always do. You should thank me, Dar, for stealing from me, for keeping you NDR sent from embarrassing yourself. She Pentr snapped. You live in another country, NTR sketching logos and drinking lattes. You don't deserve that condo. My hand tightened around the phone. And you do. Someone had to act like an adult. She hissed. You never grew up. That's when something inside me broke quietly, cleanly. You know what, Mullen? Maybe I didn't, but Grandma trusted me. And you didn't just steal money. You stole her memory. She hung up. The silence after. Her disconnect felt heavier than her voice. Minutes later, my phone buzzed. Again. Mom. Rachel, what's going on? Her voice was tight, panicked. Mullins, in tears. She says you filed a fraud case. Is that true? It's true, I said, softly, because she forged Grandma's documents. Don't be ridiculous, Mom. Snapped. Your sister would never. She's been handling everything responsibly. You know how emotional you get? Mom, this isn't emotion. It's evidence. Douglas verified the signatures. She admitted it on the phone. You recorded your sister? Yes, I said the word, slicing through the air, because no one ever believes me unless I prove it. A pause, then the familiar sigh, the one that had followed me since childhood. You used to be kind, she said finally. I don't know what happened to you. The call ended, leaving me alone with the sound of rain in my reflection, cold, unfamiliar, unflinching. For years they had mistaken silence for weakness. Now, silence was my weapon. 2 nights later, my phone lit up again, unknown number. I almost ignored it until I saw the name, attached. Ethan Pierce, Mullen's husband, I answered cautiously. Ethan, hey Rachel, he said quietly. His voice was tired, stripped of its usual politeness. I hope I'm not crossing a line, but I think you deserve to know the truth. I stayed silent. I didn't know what she'd done, he continued. She told me you'd given up your claim. I didn't ask questions, but after everything blew up, the frozen account, the bank calls, I started checking things myself, and he exhaled. She forged it. Rachel, the will, the notary, everything. She said you wouldn't notice from overseas. I confronted her yesterday. She broke down, said she deserved it more. She spent part of the money on a new house. It's gone. The world went quiet around me, and you're telling me this now because I can't keep lying for her. I'll testify if it goes to court. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Then, thank you. You don't have to thank me, he said softly. You were right all along. When the call ended, I sat in silence, staring at the rain-streaked glass. A strange calm washed over me. Not joy, not triumph, just clarity. Douglas called the next morning. Ethan's cooperating, he said. We've got enough to press forward. The buyers are testifying too. If we move now, it's airtight. Do it, I said. Hours later, Mullen's lawyer reached out. They wanted to settle. She's offering $150,000, Douglas explained. If you drop the case and let the sales stand. I laughed, bitter and low. Half the value of what she stole. No, she's desperate, he said. But if we go to trial, her side will claim Grandma wasn't of sound mind when she wrote the will. It'll be ugly. I don't care, I said. I'm done keeping peace at my own expense. He paused. You sound just like your grandmother. That hurt in the best way possible. That night, I couldn't sleep. I opened the last email Grandma had ever sent me. Her words glowed against the dark screen. If I ever leave you something, no, it's not charity. It's a promise. A promise that you'll keep living boldly. That's when I knew what to do. The next morning, I told Douglas I'll settle, but on my terms. He raised an eyebrow, which are 4 things I said. First, she writes a notarized apology admitting everything. Second, she repays every cent to the buyers from her own account. Third, she sends a letter to our parents explaining what she did. And fourth, she agrees, legally, to never contest another inheritance again. He blinked, then smiled slowly, poetic, brutal. I'll draft it. By sunset, he called back. She agreed. What she's signing now? Her lawyer said she just wants it to end. When the PDF arrived, I opened it with shaking hands. The first page began, Eileen Pierce. Acknowledge that I falsified legal documents related to the estate of Evelyn Monroe. Her handwriting looked small, defeated. I read it twice, then forwarded it to Douglas with a single line: justice served. But victory didn't taste sweet. It tasted heavy, like rain-soaked air before a storm breaks. Because justice doesn't erase betrayal. It only proves you were right all along. 2 weeks later, Douglas called again. It's official. The property's back under your name. Funds released. Buyers reimbursed. I walked to the window, looking out at the temps, the morning sun spilling through the clouds. "What will you do now?" he asked. "Sell it," I said quietly. Grandma didn't leave it for me to hold on. She left it for me to move forward. When the payment cleared, I stared at the balance. $350,000, but it wasn't the number that made me cry. It was what it represented. Belief. I quit my job 2 weeks later and opened my own studio, Evelyn Creative. One desk, one client, one dream that finally belonged to me. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel small. The condo sold faster than I expected. When the funds hit my account, I sat in the quiet of my apartment, watching the numbers glow on the screen. Grandma had given me the courage to stand up for myself, and I finally had, a month later, a small package arrived from Florida Mom's, handwriting on the box. Inside was Grandma's silver watch and a folded note. "She would want you to have this." I turned the watch over, tracing the engraving on the back. "The world is waiting." The ticking was faint, but steady, like a heartbeat that had traveled across time. Mullen moved back, near our parents, sold her new house at a loss, and filed for separation. I didn't hate her anymore. I just hoped. She learned what Grandma taught me, that freedom and integrity are worth more than anything you can steal. One morning, sunlight spilled across my studio desk, warming the silver watch on my wrist. I smiled, whispering, "I made it, Grandma." Outside London buzzed new clients, new beginnings, a life that finally fit. If you've ever had to fight for what's right, tell me, was it worth it? Hit subscribe and share your